Hey everyone, welcome to a season two of The Cloud is Calling. I am excited to be joined here today by none other than April Edwards, who is a senior developer advocate as well as the DevOps practice lead at GitHub. April, it is a pleasure to meet you virtually, and I appreciate you taking the time to come onto the show. How are you? It has been a while since we've chatted. And I,
I'm doing well, and I'm glad to be here chatting again. And gosh, it's we're kicking off season two, which is pretty cool.
it
I've
is.
changed roles. I've survived COVID. Back to traveling again. So it's been crazy busy, but really good.
Well, let's dive into it. I know you are a huge advocate of doing DevOps, and DevOps methodologies have now been around for quite a while at this point, and it still feels like organizations struggle to an extent to really successfully adopt these principles. And part of it may be because we've commoditized or productized DevOps. Why do you think organizations still struggle to operationalize these methodologies?
I think it comes down to a lot of things. I think we always look for a magic bullet, always, and we have productized it. We said, buy this thing; it will help your organization do all the right things to be DevOps friendly or high performing DevOps. I think the problem is the products or the things we can buy, the technologies, the tool sets are really 10% of the DevOps learnings. The other 80% is really the people. It's the culture and the people and how we implement those things, how we run processes. And processes are another 10%, but it is 80% down to people. And if you don't have the culture change and the buy-in from the organization, nothing's going to change. We've all done it in tech. We've bought a new app, we've bought hardware, we've bought this thing that's going to be the magic bullet, and it never gets us anywhere. So it goes back to the culture change and the culture shift. And I think um, with COVID, a lot of organizations had to accelerate their practices, and that was good. And some have kind of fallen back a little bit because they've made investments in certain areas. They haven't really come through. So we're seeing kind of a reversion, if you will, with the use of the cloud and use of some of the technologies. But the cloud doesn't solve everything, but it's a great time to start making those cultural changes when you start deploying new applications and new hardware stacks.
Speaking of culture changes, and I know that can be tough, right? There's another sub factor, right, of DevOps, and still very equally as popular in DevSecOps. And so security has become one of these critical factors within DevOps for a lot of organizations. And it has its own acronym, right? So we've
Mhm.
somehow, as an IT world, shoved it off to its own little corner, even though I think it's a part of DevOps. What makes security so important for a client leveraging cloud native or even cloud first applications?
I think security is literally in everything we do. So when we have an on-prem data center, we've set up security in such a way that we're used to it, we're comfortable with it. And when we've started these cloud conversations with people, it's always the security team that's usually been our blocker. Well, we can't do this because it's not secure, or it's not as secure as our own data center. So those are a lot of the stories we've had for years. And security then got its DevSecOps thing. I actually hate the phrase DevSecOps, and I try to never ever use it, but
Uh,
every single talk I give now, I talk about security. And security is everyone's responsibility because most of us use a cloud based product, whether it's software as a service, platform as a service, or infrastructure as a service. We have to think security first. So I put security down to why we need to automate, why we need to do things better, and how we can do things better. And I think that's playing into some of the industry trends we're seeing a lot as well. But yeah, I don't use the phrase DevSecOps if I can
what
help it.
what phrase do you use? You've got me curious now. What phrase do you use?
I just say DevOps and I just
Yeah.
talk about security or any
Mhm.
other talk I'm talking about automation, et cetera. How do we secure things from day one? And I always use the phrase security starts when your developers clone their code because they're
Mhm.
taking your organization's code, putting it on their machine. Then you're thinking about how are we securing their machine? How are they writing their code and all these things around it? Same thing when it comes to even infrastructure. Infrastructure plays, what scripts is your team holding? What single points of failure is someone on that team because they're holding on to some native knowledge that they haven't shared because they think it'll help them keep their job. It's always how we give access, right? Least amount of
Yeah.
privilege possible in every situation. So security just becomes part of every single discussion point. But I'm in no way, shape, or form like one of those amazing security experts. So deep dive stuff, I have lots of go-to people that I can call on for help. But yeah,
No, that's
security is
great.
just in everything I do.
No, that's awesome. And no, we've got some fantastic guests lined up to talk about security within DevOps and applications that'll be in this season today too. So it's certainly a huge topic, and it's something I'm very passionate about because yes, you touched on a very key point for me, right? Security should start at day one, and there's another term that I think has bothered me the wrong way, and it's this whole like, oh, we need to shift left, and it's like, but we should start day one, and you should already be there at the left. So uh, do you feel shift left is really the appropriate term for how these companies should be looking at securing those application delivery patterns? Or is it something else? Is it, to your point, right? We need to start security at day one. Or, do we need to come up with something new that says, hey, literally from the idea popping in the developer's head, that's where security starts? Like,
Yeah,
what are your
it should
feelings
really
on
be
that?
the day zero,
Day
right? We
zero.
need
Yeah.
day zero security on everything. And we've always used the term shift left because we've traditionally done things in production, or we have this idea that, oh, I'll do it later, or we'll fix it in production. Where, I spent a lot of time talking about the culture change starts at day zero or day one. So that initiation. When I talk to a lot of people and they're like, well, when do I bring in the security team or when do I bring in this team? And I'm like, day one. As soon as that idea is part of the inception, you bring in those teams. That's part of that culture change. Because if you're bringing in that security team or the infrastructure team or the QA team, the developers, whomever, you bring them all in together from day one. They know what's going to happen. So we almost need like day zero security, day zero thought processes of I have an idea, right? Here's my idea. Who do I need to bring into this? Bring them into the conversation, then start your planning.
I love it.
So
We're
yeah, I'd
stealing.
say day zero. We'll call it day zero.
Yeah, we're stealing some from the hackers, right? There's a 0-day attack. So now
Yep.
we have 0-day security. Start from, nobody knows about it. You ping that person, says, hey, we're making you a part of this, about to have at it. I want to shift topics just a tiny bit because where you are today is one of the first organizations that started the Copilot journey. And now Copilot has expanded. It's across many different use cases within kind of the Microsoft ecosystem. Um, so obviously, because you guys have had Copilot, generative AI has been around a bit longer at GitHub
Mhm.
than elsewhere. Before Microsoft made that big splash investment in OpenAI, have you seen stronger adoption among developers now that this has really started to become mainstream? Has Copilot really started to accelerate, or are developers still kind of playing it a little more close to the vest and being like, let's POC it, let's, test it out on a few use cases here and there, and then we'll see? Like, what are you
I'm
seeing out there?
I'm seeing everything at the moment. So I'm seeing
Okay.
probably a 50-50 split. So some people are coming and saying our organization can't use it. There's barriers in place to why we can't use it, but everyone's tried to dabble in it at least in their free time, whether it's Chat GPT or GitHub Copilot. And then I have some fantastic use cases that when I've spoken to customers, like this is how we're using it. How do I get the rest of my team to use it? So we are seeing people utilize it. We're seeing some organizations implement it again from day one with their developers, but maybe not their junior developers. So we're seeing such varying use cases, and we're starting to collate a lot of statistics around it. So it's been around for a while, but people are really starting to leverage it and be more productive. So we have, and I don't remember the stat off the top of my head, but it's like 30 something percent more productive with GitHub Copilot, right? For instance. So when we say GitHub kind of devised Copilot, they call it your AI pair programmer. And that is exactly it. It's not replacing us. It is a pair programmer. It's my rubber duck. It's my buddy. It's my helper. I use Copilot most days to help me write documentation, fill in lines of code. And then we have so many new features coming out in it. And some of the new features are really what's hooking people in. And they're getting really excited about that because Copilot's great,
Hmm.
helps with code. But then we're taking it a step further to make developers more productive. And that's where it's really accelerating. So I think I'm not in charge of the Microsoft branding at
No,
all or the
no,
GitHub
you're
branding.
not.
That is
Nope.
so above my pay grade. And then when Microsoft started using the Copilot, they're really throwing that AI pair programmer idea into all their products to help. I remember using PowerPoint and it would generate text from my speech and it could
Hmm.
translate to another language, even using templates, really things that I hate creating PowerPoints with a passion, but it's kind of part of my life. And how do I make them more attractive and visually appealing for people? And we started just using snippets of it, but now it's become part of every product to help that productivity for whatever that product is, whether that's in M365, so your office documents, PowerPoint, etc., into Power Platform. I mean, it's literally everywhere in the ecosystem now.
It is. It is literally permeating everything. But I feel like it started with GitHub, and I think that was a natural and deliberate place for it to start, and it's really started to grow and expand now with ChatGPT and OpenAI. Um, you and I were chatting earlier about the logo or the organization also that you're wearing the T-shirt of. I can't help but ask a question
Yeah.
about this because I know you're passionate about cloud operations, infrastructure as code. What do you feel is the best approach for clients looking to take that leap into further automation? This is a conversation I've had with clients now for the last several months, and everyone's looking to automate more, improve that efficiency. um, s- so what's step one, right? What is that easy kind of low hanging fruit that folks can take that kind of first leap into further automation?
I think there's a couple different paths. One is you can take something you do every day that says, you say, right, oh, it takes me 15 minutes, just takes me 15 minutes. But then it's the whole, if you win the lottery and disappear and leave your job, or I hate to say it, the get hit by a bus theory,
Yep.
right? If you
Hmm.
leave and take a vacation, can you let go of that task? Oh, I have to do it. And those are things that, as an IT pro or an operations side, I've always been afraid to let go of, because I was like, oh, then I'm out of job. Someone will know because I'll be more efficient. And actually, we're finding that people are becoming more respected because they've automated their way into a job. And sometimes those 15-minute tasks are really easy. And I spoke at a PowerShell conference back in June about automating PowerShell scripts with GitHub Actions. Really simple scripts. It could
Hmm.
literally be any kind of trigger. I can use a timer trigger. So I'm running this task every day at 9 a.m. Instead of having to be at I mean, I'm at my desk at 9, but instead of having to have to do that thing at 9, I can spend 5 extra minutes drinking my cup of coffee, and that task is doing its thing, and I can get the output of a GitHub Actions workflow that it ran. I can then deploy into the cloud with GitHub Actions, and I can put all my PowerShell scripts or Bash scripts into those and execute whatever I need to. So those things are easy, low hanging fruit. From an enterprise perspective, um, we always tell customers, pick the thing that hurts most and start there. And that's where I used to work in engineering when I was previously at Microsoft. We would take a customer application stack or a product stack, and they had a major problem. The one I could talk about was a big auto manufacturer had a physical box under a desk, and developers had to physically walk to the building to run this software to test their code. A single point of failure, physical box, all the problems, not scalable, not backed up. But if they lost it, they couldn't test their auto software, which seems like a really silly thing.
Hmm.
Um, and we ended up putting it to the cloud and automating it. And then it scaled so well because we did that. That wasn't overnight, that was a 6-month project. But the impact was massive on the organization, more productive, more scalable. So we always take those, what are your biggest pain points, and start there. So there's some little tasks you can certainly do.
Hmm.
Have some small wins for yourself, but from an enterprise level, without question, find the thing that hurts most and start there. And it's going to be hard and it's going to hurt, but the payoff is pretty huge.
Very rewarding. Yeah. No, that's good. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, definitely start with where you think it's gonna be painful to lose somebody or something, and yeah,
Yep.
deal with that. Before we wrap it up, I love this. This has been fantastic. I want to get your thoughts because we are in this world of generative AI. What trends do you think we can expect over the next year as companies do start to drop that barriers, right? You said right now we're about 50-50. And as you and I both know, as technology gets more advanced, we get more comfortable with using it. Those kind of barriers for entry start to come down a little bit. So, what trends do you think we can expect over the next year as companies do start to adopt more AI driven practices?
There's going to be a lot more around AI in all the products, without question. On the Microsoft side, on the GitHub side, especially, we will have some announcements in early November around GitHub Universe about what's coming.
Ooh,
I can't talk about those, but I can
no,
say
no.
that we're looking to lower that barrier to entry. I mean, think about when you get started on a project, how long does it take to get started? Where's the documentation? Or flat out, I just don't understand this new thing. If I'm picking up a
Hmm.
new technology stack, we already have Copilot X out, which is the GitHub, which is the vision for Copilot,
Yep.
and that is we have the ability to do GitHub Copilot chat. There is an ability to write documents with GitHub Copilot that's coming. create pull requests. So we're lowering that barrier to entry. So if you're getting started on a new project, I can literally open up chat right now and go, hey, Copilot, can you please explain to me what this code does or what does this thing do? And we're, as humans, we're terrible at writing documentation. Like, not many
It's
people love
literally
it.
the bane of my existence.
Yes, it's critical to every
It
project and
is. No,
customer
yeah,
handovers.
Hooper critical, but writing it was just never like something you look forward to.
It's always a thing that like falls back in any of my projects was the documentation, or you
Yeah.
think you knew it, you put enough down and you didn't. So things like that, which help people get informed, be more productive. So you're going to see a lot more in the productivity space and lowering that barrier to entry. And even when it comes to infrastructure as code, right? It's where do we get started? You know, you asked how do I get started with automation? You're going to see more templates with
Yep.
automated things that will come out that will help us, get into whatever it is we're trying to do. And that's what we're absolutely trying to do is lower that barrier to entry and have that pair program to help you accelerate your delivery.
Awesome. No, I like it. That sounds awesome. I can't wait. I love the name GitHub Universe.
Yes.
That sounds like I can just feel my mouth salivating just a little bit. Like, oh, this is going to be so cool to hear
It's gonna be some
about.
cool stuff. Lots
Yeah.
of cool stuff getting announced. It's hosted in San Fran this year. I will be there.
Oh, oh,
So
you're coming back to the States. All right.
I will be back in the US for that. Yes.
I've got to make a trip or two out to San Fran, so I may see what I can do to uh, do an in-person rendezvous. It's been a while since, or actually, we've never met in person.
No, we
We've
haven't.
chatted about it briefly, but no, it'd be fun to hang out in person. And San
That'd be
Fran's a
awesome. We'll see
fantastic
what we can
city.
arrange.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. April, thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your knowledge around DevOps and automation and AI. Obviously, I follow you out on social media, and to those of you that don't, please follow April. She has some awesome content, awesome knowledge to share. Check her out at a conference if you're in the area and you see that she's one of the speakers. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. I first got to see April at an event a few years ago, her speak, and that's where uh, we kind of somewhat connected loosely over social media. So uh, again, thank you so much for being on season 2. I really appreciate it. And obviously, we will chat again soon. And for everyone else out there, just remember